Welcome to Pixel Therapy, the video game podcast where we look at the games we play through the lens of the player, where what you play is just as important as how you play it, and where emotional intelligence is a critical stat. I'm your co-host, Jamie, pronoun she, they.
And I'm your co-host, Spencer, pronouns they, them.
And this is Pixel Therapy. Spencer, we're back.
We're back.
Back in the old podcast saddle.
Back from the Big Easy.
Back from the Big Easy? Is that what they call New Orleans?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, Spencer and
Yeah.
I were in New Orleans last
We were
week.
there.
One of the
We
many
went to New
reasons
Orleans and watched Arcane.
Yeah, we went to New Orleans and sat in an Airbnb for about 8 hours straight and watched Arcane Season 2, and it was pretty great. I was really okay with that. We could have spent our entire time in New Orleans doing that, and I probably would have been fine with it. But I'm a loser. Thankfully, other people
right there
joined
with
us and got us out of the fucking house.
Yeah, true. We needed that.
Yeah, we did need that. Arcane's great. If you're not watching Arcane, what the fuck are you doing with your life?
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? Spencer, let's start, as we always do, with our Patreon shoutouts. This is our special thank you to everyone who subscribed at our Patreon name in the credits tier. And specifically, I'm going to share everybody who's subscribed for the month of November. Because if you're following along at home, kids, we did not release a podcast in the month of November. Life's been a little hard.
We're trash, that's why.
We are not trash. Spencer's feeling down on themselves. We're not trash. We're just busy. And we're just people, man. We're just people trying to make a podcast.
We're just people watching 8 hours of Arcane. We don't have time to make a podcast. Arcane is on.
We were in New Orleans. What were we gonna do? We're gonna record a podcast in New Orleans? Anyway. No, the real it wasn't that we were too busy to record. It's that we were playing a very long game. Okay, so more on that in a second. Let me do these Patreon shoutouts. Okay. Thank you so much to the people who are continuing to support us on Patreon.
Thanks.
Y'all are very, very kind to continue taking us seriously at all.
I love you.
That's a very large thank you to the biggest fans: Genevieve, Lindsay, Pimhatai, CD Mess, Ava, Alexis, and Thomas. Thank you all for your support of the show so much. It means the world to us. Remember, if you want to get your name in the credits, you can hop on over to patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can subscribe for free if you just want to stay up to date on all things Pixel Therapy, or for as little as $2 a month, you can get access to our Patreon exclusive monthly bonus episodes. December's is just around the corner. We'll be putting that out later this week. And in November, we did an episode where we created our own video game Thanksgiving and selected our favorite food items and characters from the video game landscape to host at our Thanksgiving table. It was a lot of fun. It was very silly, but we had a good time. And that feels like 100 million years ago. So. I have lived a life since then.
Yeah.
If you're looking for other ways to support the show, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. You can also check out and subscribe to the Pixel Therapy Pod YouTube channel. That is still a thing that we do once in a blue moon. Just honestly, we know that we have been inconsistent on YouTube this fall.
I'm trash.
No, stop it. Stop it. We are it's our product that we're putting out there. So we live and die together. It's not you. But no, in all seriousness, I don't know. Scheduling and stuff is more complicated than it might seem. We're people that have lives. And this takes a decent amount of time and forethought and planning, and we want to be able to do it when we're in a good mood and can present ourselves in a way that's enjoyable to watch, I guess. I don't know. I assume I'm never enjoyable to watch, but anyway.
Okay, you can't say that if I can't say I'm trash. But anyway.
Well, if you can say you're trash, I can say I'm not enjoyable to watch. This is getting too navel-gazy. The point that I'm trying to make is that we understand and are sorry for how inconsistent we have been. We do want to continue with streams, but over the next few weeks, Spencer and I need to Spencer was like, we need to go on a 2-day retreat. Only there were the time.
We're going to do some ayahuasca together.
I did not agree to that. I didn't agree to that.
Streaming schedule.
I didn't agree to that. No, I mean, and I don't even know. I don't know if we're going to come back with a streaming schedule per se, but we need to figure out what actually feels like we can commit to. and then just reset expectations around the stream, because trying to do 2 or 3 a week is just it's clearly not attainable for us, and it's not fair for us to say that that's what we're gonna do. We're, like, playing content like that's what we're gonna do, and, like, play what we've played, like, 2 chunks of Life is Strange over the course of a month. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not what we wanna be doing either. So, there's gonna be some resetting of the stream stuff, but we are gonna continue to do streams in some fashion. So if those are of interest to you, please go over to the YouTube. That's youtube.com/@pixeltherapypod. You can subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, and then you'll get notified in those rare random times that we happen to be live. And you can sign up here on the Patreon too, free or paid, and you'll be kept in the loop of what we're up to in the new year and beyond. So thank you all for letting me say all of that. You have to, because I'm on with the microphone and you're just at home with your headphones on, you loser. But we appreciate you, of course, after all that. That no matter how much you choose to engage with us, we appreciate you being here all the same. You're not a loser. I'm a loser. All right, it's time to get cozy. Pull up an armchair. Feel free to lie down on the couch. Let's talk about our feelings. Spencer, how are you doing? Tell me how you're doing.
I don't know now.
You went to New Orleans. How was that?
Yeah, that was great. Yes. Jamie and I went to the aquarium. We petted stingrays.
Sure fucking did.
That
Oh
was
yeah,
awesome.
with 2 fingers.
That's what they like.
Scouts honor.
That's right.
They do only like the 2 fingers.
Yeah, just on the back.
Just on the back.
Maybe the back of the fin. This is what we were told.
Yeah, I just listened to the lady. She said, put 2 fingers in the water, and that's what I did.
Yeah, and it was great.
It was great. It was so
they're like
rubbery.
little doggies. They like came up and waved kind of with their fins.
Yeah.
And from underneath their faces are funny.
Yeah, they look like they're smiling, but they're probably not.
But they're like, dear God, why am I here? Also, we went out to we went out to see some jazz and
Sure did.
And party, I guess. Light partying.
Light partying.
But my story was that I was at the bar and this bartender was like, "Hey, I love your tattoos." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you." And yeah, she was like extremely beautiful. So shout out to you, really nice bartender. And
she listens to the podcast.
Randomly, she was like, "Do you like video games?" I must have been giving off some kind of like I'm a gamer vibes. I literally could not tell you. My tattoos aren't even video game related.
Here's my theory. So you were also getting a lot of comments. Spencer has this awesome like sleeveless sweater that's got like knit cherries dangling
like
off 3D,
of it. Yeah.
Like 3D. Yeah, like you could just grab them.
Yeah.
And I wonder if like those cherries this is probably a terrible theory. Like did they evoke Pac-Man?
Okay.
Or like some sort of gaming thing. I don't know. I don't know where else she just like got the idea in her head that you were probably a gamer and that she should talk to you about games. You just give off gamerness.
So I was like, "Yeah, I love video games. Thanks for asking." And she was like, "You have got to play Slay the Princess." Which happens to be a game that's been on both of our lists for a minute now.
Yeah, so
oh my God, we should ask her to be on the podcast.
Wait, okay, but do you even remember the name of that bar we were in? Because I don't.
No.
Nope. Okay, cool.
No. So then I said, "Do you like indie games?" Because you mentioned Slay the Princess, and she was like, "Absolutely, I do." And I said, "Well, you have got to play Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood."
Yeah.
Because you seem like the type of person who
like gay.
Yeah, gay and hot. So all hot gay people love the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood.
Yeah, that's accurate.
And then she blew me a kiss and
did she really?
Yeah.
I missed the kiss part. I mean, I'm standing 2 feet behind Spencer like the fucking troll that I am.
What? No. Oh my God. They're crazy. They were wearing a super hot outfit, like suspenders, floral, collared shirt. It was
okay, anyway, so we need to get this bartender on the podcast.
Yes. So I'll track down the bar.
That's right, yeah.
So
we need to put what are those called where you write the thing in the paper?
Misconnection.
Yeah, we need a misconnection. Or you need a misconnection.
We need to download Lex and post a misconnection.
You just
If anyone's
assuming
out of
she
the
sounds
loop,
funny.
Lex is a dating app for queers where
Mm,
you
mhm.
post misconnection style text posts.
Oh, I didn't
That's
know
why
that it
I
was
mentioned
specifically
it.
like that, like
Yeah,
misconnection stuff. Okay.
yeah. Bringing back the old days of,
Today I learned.
yeah, queer connection. So, anyway, what about you? How did you feel about our New Orleans trip?
I had a lot of fun. Yeah. Um That's it. That's all I have to say. No, it was a lot of
Okay.
fun. I think that the night that we went out and we did the jazz and had drinks and stuff and saw the night market, that was probably like the coolest, like most exciting thing that we did. But
Yeah.
I really loved our quiet morning, getting beignets and coffee and going to the aquarium too. That was a lot
Yeah, it
of
was fun.
fun. I liked all the people, or I liked past tense. I like all the people that we're with. They're all still alive. They're still with
Yeah.
us. Thankfully, everybody made it back. We ate some really good food. I really enjoyed watching a shitload of Arcane with you. Would do it
Yeah.
again, 10 out of 10,
Mhm.
even though that was the 3rd time I've watched the
It just
2nd
keeps
season.
giving. There's so much to
God
unpack in
damn,
each
it's so
episode.
good. Um, yeah, no, I had a lot of fun. I tend to feel like I'm not very fun in those situations, so I feel like I can get kinda
Mhm.
like but, for listeners of the podcast, I just made a, like, largemouth bass face, like a like, I don't know, I just get very, it's very easy for me to get down on myself in large group social settings because I
Mm.
have too much time to think about how, "Oh, I'm not as fun and cool as that other person. They're
Which is
probably doing the
crazy.
friend group thing a lot better than I am." But,
Nah.
I pushed through.
Yeah, you pushed through, and I appreciate you putting yourself out there and letting me take 1,000 pictures of you.
Yeah, there were a lot of pictures taken between you and one of our other friends, who's very prolific with the camera, and also
Yeah.
really likes to do the thing where you think they're taking a picture, but they're actually shooting a video.
Mhm.
Choice. I gave her a lot of shit for that while we were on the trip, but she has since put together 2, like, supercuts of the trip, and they're actually, like, really good.
Like,
So,
adorable, yeah.
I was wrong, and I need to just tolerate having my picture taken better and
Yay!
not
Jamie was
being
wrong!
Uh, but you know what I'm not wrong about?
Uh-oh.
How fucking
What?
good Metaphor ReFantazio is.
Bro! Let's talk
ReFantazio,
about it.
sorry, I am also wrong about how to say the name. So, just gonna preface this by saying I watched the Game Awards, well, I didn't so I missed the Game Awards for this
Mhm.
trip. I hope you understand.
Thank you.
I've watched the Game Awards every year for a very
It's a
long
big
time.
deal.
It's a big deal. I don't know, I didn't even think twice about it, to be honest, but
Aw.
I did watch them when I came home on Sunday because I had heard that they were really good, and they were really
Mm.
good, one of the better ones.
Hmm.
But at the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley pronounced Metaphor ReFantazio, which is the name of the game that we're gonna talk about today, as Metaphor ReFantazio. I
Mm.
realized that I have probably been saying wrong, and I'm probably gonna continue to do so.
I mean,
So
in your
sorry about that.
defense, what the hell is a ReFantazio? Like, what is that? What does that
Or
mean?
or a what is a ReFantazio? That's also not a
Like,
thing.
whenever I say the name
We're
of this
making up
game
words.
is Metaphor ReFantazio, people are like,
What?
"What?"
Yeah, yeah, so let's talk about it. So Metaphor ReFantazio from developer Studio Zero and publisher Atlus. It's made by the creators of Persona 3, 4, and 5, and
Mm,
Spencer and I have put in the hours. We have
yep.
sacrificed our social lives and
Mhm.
the quality of this podcast to
Truth.
bring you this review of Metaphor ReFantazio. The
We've
2024
sacrificed everything.
we sacrificed everything at the altar of Metaphor ReFantazio. This is a 2024 turn-based role-playing video game, that we've been waiting for all year long, you and I,
Mhm.
until the lovely month of October when it came out, best month.
Yep.
The game was nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards last week, and it won Game Awards for Best RPG, Best Narrative, and Best Art Direction. It's got a 92 on OpenCritic. It's got a very positive ranking on Steam. It has my whole goddamn heart and an
Mhm.
awfully large chunk of my life. Let's talk about this absolute epic of a
Oh
video
my
game.
gosh. Oh my god.
Tell me what's going on. How much have you
Like,
played? How are you playing it? What's your high level take?
mhm.
Metaphor
I mean, for the
ReFantazio.
gamers who say, "Let's take politics out of video games," Like, I'm surprised this game hasn't gotten more hate because it literally all it is
Politics in your video games?
politics
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
your video games. This game is like, what if we lived in a communist utopia and also everyone was hot and like agender? And that's why we love you, Atlas. Anyway, I just clocked in at 96 hours last night and I'm still not done. I still have like 12 days of the game left. The game, like other Persona installments, is moving through several months of like a calendar year. And so time passes day by day as you complete activities. And so, yeah, I still have like 12 days left of in game time. And I'm playing it on PS5 because it deserves the best,
Mhm.
the best of the
The best
best.
money can buy.
That's right. I also managed to get my hands on I'm showing it on the screen because it's right here next to me, but I got my hands on a 30th anniversary PlayStation Portal, and I
Mhm.
love her,
Yeah,
and
she's hot.
I've been playing it on that. Also, oh my god, I have to say, if anyone out there has a PlayStation 5, for the 30th anniversary, you can change your startup screen to the
Mm.
original PlayStation 1, and that sound of, like
Mhm.
the sound oh my god, chills. I get chills every time. Anyway, okay.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, your camera's
anywho,
did it for a second. Sorry,
the cat
Spencer's camera's
I'm
being
in and out of focus
yeah.
because of
You
yes,
held
okay.
the portal up and now it can't. It's like, "I
Now
bring
it's
the
like,
portal back."
"Who are you?" Yeah. No one cares about your face. Bring back the portal.
Yep.
My high level take is that this is the greatest game of all time, and I'm done with gaming because I've played the greatest game of
Oh,
all time.
okay. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Wrap it up.
The
We are
end.
done. Spencer's no longer a gamer. Call that bartender
I've
back.
ascended.
Let her know you shan't be playing Slay the Princess because you've played the best game of all time and nothing will compare.
That's it. It's managed to combine, like, all of my favorite things,
Mhm.
like Renaissance art
Mhm.
and communist manifestos
Mhm.
and, like, queer platonic friendship
Mhm.
and really long epic narratives examining what makes us human and overcoming our trauma to ascend to greater heights and embrace the everlasting change that permeates every aspect of life.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, how about you? How much have you played?
So I have finished the game. I clocked it. I think it was like around 140, 150 hours was my game clock.
Damn.
But I have a bad habit of sometimes getting on the old telephone while I'm
Mm,
playing and just leaving it on the screen for a long time.
did you
So I don't
platinum?
no.
Okay,
No. I would have had to do a second playthrough. I do
let's
not have that kind of time.
mhm,
Uh but yeah, no. Uh Yeah, I would have either had to do a second playthrough or been, like, really, like, using a guide to get
mhm,
through it all in one go, and I didn't wanna use a guide on my first playthrough of a game like this, and
mhm,
did not wanna do a second playthrough, so, yeah.
real.
Um, I also played on PS5, and I also got a Portal specifically for Metaphor ReFantazio because I was like, I don't know, it just seems like the kinda game that's good to handhold,
Mhm,
sometimes, or it seemed like it would be, given the amount of text. If you're not familiar with the Persona
mhm,
games, there's definitely voice acting in them, but there is so much narrative and so much dialogue that, like, maybe a third, maybe a quarter of all of the dialogue in the game is, like, actually spoken, like, narrated voice acted,
mm,
and the rest of it is just text on the screen. Um, so it's got kind of like, not exactly a visual novel, but yeah, there's a lot of text on the
yeah,
screen that you're reading, and so I felt like having it in my hands, would be good for that, and it was. Also, the other the Persona games and stuff have had, times where you're just grinding in, like, repetitive dungeons, and So, like when we played Persona 3 the other year, was that this year? Last year?
I think that was last year.
Was it last year? When we played Persona 3, there's like there was a lot of grinding and repetitive combat in that game, so I
Right.
would like have podcasts on and stuff in the background. So I felt like, oh, if I have it in my hands, I can put something on the TV. Uh, so yeah, I really enjoyed playing it on the portal. I thought that really was like a really good way to play it. So if
Mhm.
that's an option that folks have for themselves, or I believe the game is on Steam as well. So you could play it on a Steam Deck. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
handheld's really good way to experience this game. But to your point, it's also a really fucking gorgeous game, and so there are plenty of times where I just wanted to have it up on the screen.
Mhm.
Um, and my high level take is that like I really fucking like this game. Uh, I haven't like I haven't figured out my game of the year like list yet, but this is definitely high on the list. It was a really fucking good time. And I'm a big dum dum, and I didn't get like we're gonna get into it more here in a bit, but like you were like dropping all these, oh, it's referencing this and it's referencing that, and this like classical painter and this fucking writer and this philosopher, and I'm just like, oh, me having read 2 books my entire life, I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. I was like, I
It's
like
not
the
true.
little bat guy.
Yeah, we like him.
So I think it works on both levels.
Mhm.
And yeah, I did appreciate that it was a game that wears its politics right on its chest and has a lot to say about how we can and should try to change the world for the better. So I'm excited to dig into that with you. But it really was, mechanically and just on every level, really cranked up the Persona formula in a really good way. It makes me excited to see what we'll get when we eventually get Persona 6 and how they're going to continue to evolve the franchise. And it was cool to see them like step out and do this yeah, kind of like I don't know, side narrative or just a new IP, new franchise,
Yeah.
that steps away from the high school setting and the modern day setting and, takes a big swing, and I
Mhm.
think they knocked it out of the park. So
Yes.
let's get into a little bit. I wanted to start with a bit of a summary, acknowledging that this is a game that takes people anywhere from 60 to, if you're me, 150 hours.
Mhm.
So it is long. The narrative is long and convoluted. I'll just, not, and I don't mean convoluted in a bad way. It's a long game, and the narrative keeps going through the whole game. You're never
Yeah.
like, okay, the story's done, and now I'm just playing the game. Like, it's very dense.
But
Um,
it never manages to lose itself. Like, you
no,
never feel like, "What? Where is this going?" Like, it
yeah.
doesn't mire itself in unnecessary detail. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's
No, I
yeah.
agree with that completely. That's a good addition. Um, but all that just to say that, like, it's hard to talk about this game with it being so narrative heavy and it being so narratively dense without feeling like maybe we're spoiling something because I mean,
Sure.
honestly, like any like it's really common in RPGs. It's like you can be 30 hours into the game and then you get a new party member. And you're gonna
Yeah.
have that party member for another like 50 to 60 hours. So it might be somebody that we want to talk about, but maybe you could consider it a spoiler if you didn't wanna know that 30 hours into the game, that person's gonna join your party. So, I just say all this to say Spencer and I are not going to intentionally spoil anything that we think is, like, really, valuable to the main plot and is meant to not be spoiled and meant to be experienced, but we may be referencing things that if you really wanted to play the game without knowing anything about where things go, um, you might consider that a spoiler. So I guess just, listen with that bit of caution. We're not gonna explicitly tag anything as spoilers. I don't think. We'll see where the conversation goes, but
Mhm.
um we might be talking about things that do happen 20, 30 hours into the game, but that aren't that we don't really consider quote unquote spoilers, but that you might if you really want to go in not knowing anything.
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes some sense. That's our spoiler warning. So somewhat quick, concise summary here of the plot, like where we kick off with the game. Metaphor is set in a medieval fantasy world inhabited by several different races that the game refers to as tribes. People in the game refer to them as tribes. And they're all kind of human-ish, but they have various different features. There's the Clemar people, which have like horns. There's the Rusant, which have really long ears. There's the
Mhm.
Ujif, which are probably the least humanoid, and they are very short and they look like kind of like bat people.
Mhm.
There's the Parapus, who are kind of like dog slash cat people.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that there's more. There's 9 of them in total. And in the world of the game, discrimination and bigotry across the tribes is incredibly common, creating a world that's full of oppression, violence, and injustice, similar to our own reality in a lot of ways. So even though this is this medieval fantasy setting, like socially, you can see a lot of parallels between
Yeah.
our modern society and what exists in the world of the game. You play as a young Elda boy, Elda being one of the races. And Elda are specifically the most humanoid of the tribes, but they're also the most oppressed. And they tend to live more in isolation and not actually go out into main society because the main religion of the game has kind of condemned the Elda as like close to demons, basically, like believes
Yeah.
that they are responsible for everything bad in the world and kind of pins it on them. So most people are quite cruel to Elda people.
Mhm.
But yeah, so he plays this young Elda boy. Canonically, the main character is named Will, but players do have the option to create their own name. Did you name your character something different?
I named him Will.
You named him Will? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Will was the canonic name. I don't know where people
Okay.
find this, like, or the canon name. I named mine Bastion, but I feel like that's
Oh, nice.
I kind of went the
Love
same
that.
direction with it. So, anyway, you play as Will or
That's
the
such a good
protagonist,
pick. Sorry.
right?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it worked well. Will's story begins following the assassination of the king of the realm, and we quickly will learn that Will is a close friend and ally of the prince, who is the true heir to the throne, but who the general populace believes to be dead, following an attack that occurred several years ago that left the prince in like this sleeping beauty like curse. Um, so Will, with his fairy companion, whose name is Gallica, is on this covert mission to gather allies for the prince against the prince's political rivals, most notably a man named Sanctifex Forden, who's the head of the state religion, basically the Pope, um,
Mhm.
and General Luis Guibern, I
Mhm.
think,
Yeah.
who's a powerful and ruthless soldier who's become popular due to his belief in meritocracy and his willingness to accept members of all tribes into his ranks, so long as they prove themselves capable. So, following the king's death, the realm is thrust into this like magical political election for their
Mhm.
next leader, meaning that basically the popular vote, the people are going to decide who will be the next leader of the land. And so Will and his allies decide that the best thing they can do, since the prince is still cursed and sleeping, is to put Will forth as the candidate. While in the background, they work to try to break the curse against the prince in the hopes that they'll be able to do that in time that the prince can reveal himself and become the new leader of the realm. Uh, yeah, I think that lays it all out. So you
Yeah.
then you then spend the game, traveling across the country, making friends and allies, building your team, fighting monsters and dungeons, and doing it all kind of in the name of trying to put forth this utopic society in which everyone will be taken care of and people can live equally and um, live without oppression and injustice in their life.
Mhm.
Will is very idealistic, 18-year
Yes.
old baby boy. So despite the name, the game is pretty on the nose about its politics. Like it's not that like it's a metaphor, but it's not that subtle.
Mhm.
The player's party is very progressive. And you do make friends across all races, classes, and religions. And so you get a lot of different perspectives presented to you as part of the game. Uh, in a very, coincidental, but maybe serendipitous, situation, the game came out on October 11th, so basically just about a month before the, presidential elections here in the US. So it was very interesting to be playing this game
Yeah.
as we were experiencing our own elections. Um,
Totally.
yeah, how did that land for you?
Yeah, especially because of the message of you know, regardless of class, like whoever the next king is going to be from the will of the people. And this idea that these candidates can't just uh buy their way in or force their way in or use, like propaganda to get themselves to the top. Like they have to demonstrate their worthiness to lead and I don't know. I think like Jamie was saying, the world in this game is very much like our own. Um and yeah, I don't know. I guess like it felt very real.
Yeah. Was
And a
it
lot of
Oh,
no,
I
go,
was
you
just gonna
go.
say, like, I don't know, I that it could have been off-putting to be
Mhm.
playing a game that is so on its face about politics and political elections while we're experiencing an actual political election. Like, that could have been too much.
Yeah.
Except for me personally, I found, especially with the way the game presents the politics and the world, it was such a there's so much hope baked into the game and into the story of Will and the character of Will and what he's trying to build that I found it to actually be kind of cathartic or maybe like a
Mhm.
balm against the real political election that we were going through. I don't know. Is that an experience that you shared, or did you find it to just be too much politics when you were playing in October?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways it was validating that, you know, people the world over see things as they are and share a dream for a more unified and more equitable world. Like there's something really validating in that another world is possible and we can imagine it. Um like the theme of fantasy and the power of fantasy is such a big idea put forward in the game. It's actually kinda hilarious when you die, in the game, Dark Souls style, but all across the screen in big text is just
Yeah.
"Fantasy is dead." Um, I love that so much,
Yeah, it really cracked me up.
but it's really about, even in a world where change can be slow and people can be terrible and human desires and human violence set us back. It's ideas that give us hope to move forward. I think there's a quote I wrote down from Will, the protagonist, where he says, even if I were to win the throne, there's no guarantee my idealistic vision could ever become reality. And yet, what choice is there but to believe in them and fight on? The alternative is to accept that nothing will change. And so, yeah, there was something like a wind that lifts you up a bit is kind of how it felt for me, like a balm of
Mhm.
yes, the world is terrible. Yes, uh in a world that lacks magic and spells and powers that manifest and allow you to literally fight evil.
Mhm.
um what is there, what can hope look like in a world where we don't have these things and the power of friendship can't take us to the new future? Well, we still have our ideas and we still have our relationships, and even a small, you know one small impact can have reverberating
Can
effects,
reverberate.
or can reverberate. And so it felt good to play. It
Yeah,
wasn't it wasn't too much. It was kinda like what I needed, I think, to be
yeah.
able to get through that moment and know that, um, thousands of people playing this game are seeing these messages too, and they're coming away feeling inspired and empowered, and,
Mhm.
we have to move past despair, and, um, a game like this just feels like it's like what art is meant to be, which is, like, to keep you questioning like, they say art is inherently political. I feel
Mhm.
like this game is that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it sh and art should be, and it should be provoking us and maybe showing us different perspectives and not promising that, like, it's all gonna be fixed overnight. Like, if anything, yeah, you
Mhm.
you toil and toil for hundreds of hours to try to maybe create a future that you want. Like, I don't know,
Mhm.
this game is amazing. It's like life in a game. Anyway, I don't know if I'm making sense. What
No, you definitely are. I mean, I think that's one of the things, when I say the game is a balm and the game's so full of hope and that it wasn't overwhelming to play it as we led up to our election. In fact, it was an escape
Mhm.
from how terrible it felt to be in those moments leading up to the US election. Um because but the game is not like naive in its presentation of
Yes.
hope. One of the interesting aspects of the game is that Will gets his political ideals from a book, actually, that he
Mhm.
carries around in his reading. That um, it's a book that has been banned across the realm. A lot of people don't have access to it, and it's a fantasy story about a utopian society where people vote and elect their leaders, where people live in equality without injustice. In a lot of ways, the world that is depicted inside of the book, I mean, when you see images from it, there's skyscrapers and stuff. It looks like our
Mhm.
modern world, except even still it's a idealized version of that, right? Because obviously we don't live in a world where everyone is equal, and even though we elect our leaders, there's a lot of issues with all of the other influencing factors that go into that and the way people are manipulated through the electoral process and things like the electoral college. And we could go on and on about all the challenges that we face in our modern democracy. But for him, living in a monarchy, and
Yeah.
a monarchy with like a very heavy-handed religious state, that what he reads in this book is utopia, and he draws away these ideals of people living in equality and electing their leaders and everyone trying to help each other out and taking care of each other. Um, and one of the game's main antagonists, the general Luis that I mentioned before, you find out at a certain point in the game that he also has the book that's been banned,
Mhm.
and he has also read it. He's one of the few people who's read it, and he also took his own perspective from it. And that's where he's come up with these ideas of the meritocracy, and everyone should, if you can hold your own, then you should get what you're able to get out of life. But if you're too weak, and you can't, then you should be left
Ollie.
to die. Yeah, like, um, but for a lot of people, especially folks who are oppressed or marginalized within the world, that really speaks to them because they've previously just been told that, like, you're not worth anything. And here comes along a guy who says, like, well, if you're strong enough, if you deserve it, then you'll get it. And so that's really
Mhm.
appealing. But even just within the context of the game, having these two characters read the same book and come away with a different takeaway from it and a whole different political ideal based on it, that are both like, there's so much similarity between Will and Luis in terms
Mhm.
of in terms of like the ultimate society that they want to build, but they're completely different in how they want to go about it. Will's vision being much more grounded in taking care of everyone and like bringing everyone along with you and figuring out how we can support each other, and Luis's being much more cutthroat. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all very realistic. And then even with the election itself, like, yeah, okay, the people are going to participate in this magical election where the will of the people will just automatically be who can be voted. There's kind of all these elements to the magic where if you are one of the top candidates, you can't be killed by another candidate.
Mhm.
So people can't just like, commit subterfuge and like be taking out candidates just because they're strong or powerful. There's a lot of rules to it and magic that protects everybody. And yet, even still, we see very early in the game that the church like tries to manipulate the scenario to push people's will in certain directions to keep the church's candidates as front runners. And so even there, yeah, I don't know. It's just very
Yeah.
it's not naive about how these systems
Yes.
actually work. And it's
Mhm.
not j what's beautiful is how Will and his friends band together, how they keep pushing for their vision, and it's just very, the whole message of the game is very empowering and very much about collective action and how diverse groups can come together and share unique perspectives with each other, and that we can use that for the betterment of everybody, and that even small actions can have large consequences. And that all felt really good, to be experiencing in the midst of, our current hellscape.
Yeah, it's fun to see some queer communists take over the world.
Uh, um, I was
But this
hoping.
is
Oh,
yeah.
no, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, this is about the time in the game where I started freaking out because, Jamie brought up Will's book,
Mhm.
which is this utopic vision, and you learn very early in the game that the book was written by a man named Moore, and he becomes, kind of a partner to you. You sort of visit him in your mind palace, kinda similar to other Persona games where you enter this
The Velvet Room,
the
like that
Velvet Room and
for folks who play
access
Persona, yeah.
aspects of yourself, that manifest outside of you, and you can do fun turn-based battles with all your powers
Mhm.
manifesting from your desires and passions. So similarly,
Casual.
casual, more, helps you unlock these beings called archetypes, which are the heroic embodiments of these people who lived long, long ago and used their power to change the world for the better. Um, and so the first manifestation of that for Will is the Seeker. There's others like the Warrior, the Commander, the Thief, and
Mhm.
they are like embodiments of these, I guess, like I said, archetypes. Um, that sort of manifest different values, that can be used towards and they might like something like the thief might be more of an anti-hero, but it's like, how can when we think of a thief, like, we might think of someone like Robin Hood, who was using his thievery to help the poor and rob the rich and equalize,
Mhm.
the world, and so, um, the Seeker is, this kind of, almost like a witty, like seeker of knowledge who
Mhm.
uses wit uh and words to like outsmart and like win the day. That's kind of the vibes I got from that
Mhm.
archetype. But anyway, I was like, "Oh my god, More, that's gotta be a reference to Thomas More."
Mhm.
And Jamie was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Oh my
He was
god."
like,
So
what?"
Um, but yeah, so Thomas More, um, he wrote this book called Utopia in 1516, believe it or not, which is a narrative exactly like the book that Will reads in the game, where it's depicting a fictional island, which has to be noted that Uchronia, I think, is the name of the island in Metaphor ReFantazio where everybody
Mhm.
lives.
Mhm.
And so Thomas More's Utopia is about this island. Um, and how it is an ideal society, and it's characterized by total equality, like, there's a lack of hierarchy and everyone's needs are met. It talks about how this society, has no private property or money, like, there's collective ownership and everyone is taken care of. People work together in social harmony, there's no racism, there's no discrimination. There's no war, and there's very little government interference. Like, people are free to live as they want, they're free to believe what they want, they're free to like, talks about women's rights, it talks about, like, institutions and policies that are, like, entirely governed by logic and reason, and so this came out in 1560, this
It's
super
fucking
communist,
wild.
feminist utopic book. Actually, the word utopia was coined by Thomas More as the title of
Okay.
this book. He came up with that word um, based on the Greek word utopos, which means no place.
Mm.
He created utopos, which would be Greek for good place, and created the word utopia of like, what is this perfect place? Um, so yeah, it's like a
Hmm.
pagan communist city state in which everyone is equal, in contrast to at that time in Christian Europe when the church was very much ruling um, the land, and you see that reflected in the game as well, where sanctism, the religion of the game, the church is kind of like ruling through fear, and instilling folks this belief that bad things happen to people who aren't loyal to the church. Even magla and magic, the use of magic is sort of governed and meted out by the church in
In
the
the game.
game.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so Thomas More wrote this book. Um, People thought he was crazy. I mean, again, it's like it also became wildly popular.
Yeah.
And Thomas More was eventually imprisoned in the Tower of London, and um, what is it called? Executed, uh, because he wouldn't accept the rule of King Henry VIII as the new head of the Church of England,
Hmm.
and because of his radical ideas, which is wild too. Because when you meet More in the game metaphor, he
Mhm.
is imprisoned in a tower.
Yeah.
He feels like him writing this book was probably contributing to that, and he has these very radical ideas about what society could look like that people aren't ready to accept.
Mhm.
So it's just kind of wild how much the book still holds up today for a book written in 1516.
Yeah.
Um, it talks about, yeah, freedom of religion, even things like divorce and euthanasia, and like the freedom of people should have to control their own lives and who they love. And
Uh,
um yeah, basically his wit and imagination have codified him as, one of the greatest thinkers of our time of previous times. And yeah, it's wild. People are cool. Like, people are amazing. Like, that's
yeah.
crazy. Like, it could probably bring him to today's society and he'd be fine. It's like, those
Yeah.
memes where it's like, imagine trying to explain like YouTube to a medieval peasant. It's like
Uh-huh.
Thomas More would be like, word, pass the blunt. Like, and he
Oh
was
my god.
actually canonized. I just learned this today when I was trying to create a little bio for him, but
Yeah.
he was actually canonized by the church as a saint, by the Catholic Church as a saint. So he's a saint, which he
Oh,
deserves.
Saint Moore.
One nice thing the Catholic Church has done.
There they go.
So
They got one.
they got one. So yeah, so that very much came through for me
Yeah.
when playing this game, and just having the concepts in this book introduced to a new audience today. It's
Mhm.
like in the game, a lot of these ideas seem very radical and new, but if you start looking deeper, you realize that none of this is new, and that people have been dreaming up new worlds and fighting for our future, like, even longer we have. And so I really appreciate the way that this game, kind of pulls from that history, and brings it to today in a way that feels so fresh and accessible, while still really honoring and respecting, where it came from. I mean, it's just amazing. So,
Yeah.
um,
That's
yeah.
really fucking awesome. There's kind of one more aspect of some of the themes in the game that I wanted to touch on. The game spends a lot of time talking about like people's like political and social not social, like, maybe this isn't the word I'm looking for. Help me out here. But like, not social anxiety, like I have
Mm,
anxiety when I'm in a social situation, but like our
mhm,
political anxiety, our cultural anxiety, like our anxiety about society. Maybe it's just
mhm.
so social anxiety in like the society aspect. So it spends a lot of time like talking about the impacts of that anxiety and where people direct it and how that like I don't want to spoil anything. So I'm not going to go too explicit about but anxiety has like physical impacts on the world that is put forth in Metaphor ReFantazio.
Mhm.
And the game spends a lot of time talking about, like, where people direct that anxiety and whether or not they turn it inward on themselves or whether or not they put their anxieties on authority figures. And it kind of, critiques, people in society at large for placing all of their anxieties, all of their concern for society and culture, and the world on the shoulders of authority figures rather
Mhm.
than taking any of that, again, what the game calls your anxieties, and placing that on yourself and trying
Yeah.
to do something yourself about the situation. And I thought that was, like, just another, like, interesting layer to add into this for the game to be, I think, pretty directly saying you can't just sit back and expect the politicians to fix everything, the
Yes.
politicians and the authority figures to fix everything. They are not going to do that. That's a bad situation for you and a bad situation for them. And it's not going to actually create change, if you just, decide to just place all of your again, it refers to it as your anxiety, but just place all of your hopes and dreams on them. Just place everything that you think needs to happen with society on them. And then you can just bitch about what the politicians are doing while you continue to do nothing and live your life. And and that's it. And then nothing will change. But you'll have relieved yourself of that anxiety. That what I would
Mm.
even voice it as social responsibility. You'll have relieved
Mhm.
yourself of that because you've placed it on the authority figure, and now it's their problem to figure out. And I think the game actually, like, kind of criticizes people for doing that and society at large for doing that. And that ends up being part of the problem, behind the challenges that the people in the game are facing, that the world at large is facing. Um, I don't know, what did you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, you have a quote written in the notes here that I think really hits it on the
Please,
nose.
go for it.
Um, like Luis says, "The more anxious the people grow, the more they choose blind fanaticism over confronting their fears."
Mhm,
Um, and that, I think, is something that's very applicable to today. I think
mhm,
part of the problems that we encounter, um, as a society, it's like um, we see genocide playing out across our social feeds every day. We see worsening conditions and a widening wealth gap between billionaires and the poor. We see more and more of um, rights, our rights to housing, our rights to healthcare being stripped away, with no end in sight, and more being done by the kind of oligarchs running our government to create class division and distract us, from building solidarity and building movement against them. And I think because we live in a capitalist, puritanical society, we are conditioned to think of our own individual safety and disregard the collective to buy a modicum of what we perceive as protection, from things like sickness, homelessness, disease, and war by continuing to feed into these systems. And they play on our anxieties, our fears, of being cast out, of losing our very tenuous grip on stability, by, you know, feeding into anxieties and giving us like false enemies to attach and pin our fears onto and scapegoat. I don't know if I'm answering your question,
No,
but like I
you
do.
definitely are. You're also just, like, fucking spitting bars right now, so please keep going.
I just feel like, the powers that be very much prey on our anxieties and our desire to be safe and free of
Mhm,
pain, and to protect our loved ones, and to say that, like, if you do this, if you play by our rules, if you do everything right and you don't think about it too much, then you'll be okay.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think, like, it's a lot easier to just buy into that, to
Yeah.
quickly allay whatever anxiety you're feeling and to ignore it
Mhm.
and to kinda push it away. But the more you sit with your anxiety and feel it, the easier it is to, I suppose you'd say, become radicalized, even though I don't even feel like that is the right, like, it's not radical to say, like, people should be equal. There should be no racism. There should be no
Yeah.
discrimination based
Yeah,
on
that
religion or
shouldn't be
skin
that
color.
radical, yeah.
It shouldn't be radical to say everyone deserves a home. It shouldn't be radical to say anyone who works should be able to support themselves and their family and feed themselves. Um, but it is because that's how far we've been pushed by
Yeah.
capitalism.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's so easy to just put your blinders on and be like, if I vote for this person or if I believe this thing or if I buy into this narrative, if I just accept that as truth instead of forming my own truth, then all of my problems will be solved. It's a lot harder to lean into your anxieties and to, you know, let it allow it to push you to act in ways that may sacrifice some of your perceived safety, but put you more aligned with your values. It's a
Mhm.
scary, scary, scary thing to do. And so, yeah, I thought
Yeah,
the
I mean,
inclusion of anxiety and the exploration of that was really powerful in this game.
yeah, and I think the game too does a good job of not, because the counter to that, right? The counters the flip side of saying, okay, I absolved myself of all social responsibility. That's for the authority figures. I'm just living my life. The flip side of
Mhm,
that is to, like, the complete opposite of that is to take it all on yourself and think you individually have to solve it, and then just becoming completely, like,
mhm,
ineffective and not able to do anything because the problems, the challenges that we face are so big that one person can't possibly resolve them.
mhm,
And the game suggests that that too is pretty detrimental, because that to some extent is what Luis is planning to do, is to flip the coin of where people's anxieties have been directed and put it back on the individual, and then either you can make it or you can't, and if you can't, bye, and if you
mhm,
can, then great, you're the strong and you'll survive. Um, and so for Will and his party, they really represent what the game posits is the solution to this. What I would agree with is the solution to this is, again, banding together diverse peoples, diverse perspectives coming together, and through collective action, we can make an impact. Um, the uh, there's this, like, mysterious voice slash narrator that appears throughout the game and speaks, and I won't spoil, you eventually do learn who it is, but throughout
mhm,
most of the game, she just appears as this mysterious voice, and she has this, line at one point in the game that she delivers where she's talking about the power of the archetypes that your party has developed and that you've used to, fight and save people throughout the land, and she says, like, that power is no great and rare treasure. It's something that might be grasped by anyone with the will to change the world, and anyone has the power to change the world.
mhm,
Those children proved as much. Those children being like you and your party. And you're not kids, but she's been
mhm.
around for forever, so you're totally
Yeah,
fine. But
yeah,
like, yeah, the game is like very explicitly saying that, you know, through collective action, um,
yeah,
we can achieve great things, and that it doesn't have to be either it's all on the politicians or it's all on the individual. um that in fact we have to come
yeah,
together, and that uh yeah, we're not gonna fix it all in a day. Like, Will and his friends meet plenty of obstacles throughout what they're doing, and plenty of people who don't agree with them, and they don't always fix, they don't always fix the situation, or they don't always make it perfect, but like, they don't lose hope, and they keep trying and keep
mhm,
pushing towards their ideals and being bonded by those ideals. And even when they don't totally all agree on everything. I don't know. I think the game just does a good job of kind of
yeah.
showing it. Yeah, it's not just naive idealism, and it's trying to present a possible path forward.
Yeah, and I wrote down another quote kind of along those lines of what this anxiety is and the power to be drawn from it. Uh, it would be a spoiler to say who's saying this, but the quote is, "Magla is a substance born of the heart." So magla is like this energy that
Mhm,
exists in the world that can be channeled into performing magical feats like shooting fire at something or
mhm,
having super strength or whatever. So magla is a substance born of the heart, generated when one feels anxiety or fear. It may be kindled into power. That is what we call magic. It is by virtue of the anxiety in our hearts that we gain the power to overcome it. Magic is a natural process, and anxiety is its invaluable, irreducible fuel. So, this
mm,
idea that, like, magic, this thing which allows us to move mountains, to create change, to like totally shift the course of the world, is born from our fear and anxiety. It's
mm,
like,
mhm,
you know, like anxiety and fear aren't inherently bad, even though at first they may feel that way.
mhm,
Um, like if it's what you do with that fear and with that anxiety,
yep,
that really creates change. It's like the people who are willing to change the world and sacrifice everything for their ideals are the people who move our society forward, and they do that because they're coming from a place of anxiety and a place of love. Like, love is an ultimately radical act, and love isn't always, like, romantic, you know, ideals. Like, love is also, you know, fear of losing someone or fear of the world being destroyed or anxiety about, like, wanting to build the world that you know is possible. Like, all of that is love as well as it is fear. I don't know, I'm just like, this
yeah, yeah.
game.
Well,
So,
like, as predicted, we have so much to say about this game. I wanna try to, like, do some, like, I don't know, kinda quick hits, like, things
yeah.
that you love in this game. And I wanna talk about the gameplay a little bit because, obviously it's a long, narrative dense game. We could talk about the
Mhm.
narrative for probably another 2 hours and not cover everything that we've been able to extrapolate from it. There's a lot in there. And even just what we've said so far is, like, very broad strokes. There's so many
Yeah.
like small interactions that you have with characters, little moments. The game has so much to say about
Mm.
faith and religion and death and grief
Mhm.
and just like just start, workers' rights. There's
Mhm.
so much in there. Um, but yeah, I just for the sake for the sake of time and the breadth of this conversation, I want to talk a little bit about the gameplay. We said if you have any familiarity with the Persona games, this game feels very similar to those in the way that at its core, it's a game about time management. You have a calendar system. You have afternoon time slots and evening time slots that you have to choose activities for once you're into the thick of the game. There's some activities that are only available in certain locations, such as the Gauntlet Runner, which is your like big steampunk like
Like,
boat with
Howl's Moving
legs.
Castle
Like
style.
yes, Howl's Moving Castle style ship that you use to traverse the continent with. Um, you have all the activities that you can do, they tend to fall into one of a few categories. You can go into a dungeon or a scenario where there's going to be combat. And very similar to the Persona games, if you go into a dungeon for the day, then you can't do anything at night because your characters are tired. You can use your free time to hang out with your companions or other people that you have bonds with. Similar to Persona, you have people who you have bonds with that are in your party, that are your actual party members that you travel with. And then there's also just a handful of people in the world that you'll form a bond with that you can go to and build up a social rank that unlocks benefits and unlocks a narrative that centers on that character. There's just some great, like the characters in this game that you bond with and the people that are in your party are broadly like really fucking good.
Mhm.
I don't think similar to Persona 5, like I don't know, I kept going back and forth on whether or not I liked the bonds in this game better than the ones in Persona 5, and I think, like, after taking a couple weeks and reflecting, I do think, like, all said and done, the the social links in Metaphor are probably better overall. There are some
Mhm.
individual relationships from Persona 5 that I probably appreciated or that I probably liked maybe more than almost
Mm.
any in this game. Catchy cough, cough.
Mhm. Yeah.
But there wasn't a single person in Metaphor that I had a bond with that I wasn't at least somewhat interested in seeing how their story went, and I
Yeah.
can't say the same about Persona. There's a couple characters, a couple bonds in Persona that I'm just like, "I guess I'll see this
Whatever.
through
Yeah.
because I have the time," you
Mhm.
know? You're also increasing social stats. In this game, they're called your royal virtues, but same basic idea. You're doing things to level those up, and those unlock different content in the game. And then when you actually go into the dungeons and you're doing the fighting, they have, it's very similar to Persona Combat. It's turn based. It's this type of turn based that's called press turn, which is basically both you and the enemy have a set number of actions you can take on your turn, and hitting weaknesses will increase the number of actions you can take on your turn. Versus like if you miss or if you fail your attack, that will reduce the number of actions that you can take on your turn. Um, but Metaphor adds a really cool system where you can actually engage in real-time fights. I don't think this has
Love it.
existed in any of the Persona games before, but
Mhm.
when you're in a dungeon, you can use your fairy companion Gallica to scan the area. And if enemies are below your level, you don't have to go into a turn-based scenario with them. You can if you prefer to fight turn-based, but you can also choose to just run right up to them and smack them with
Mhm.
your weapon. You can dodge, and if you engage in an attack, your party members will too. So if you are in a dungeon where there's mostly lower level enemies, you're just trying to run through an area that has lower level enemies, it makes it so much quicker and easier to just blow through there and not have to go into a turn-based fight every single time. Even once you're in the turn-based fights, I just feel like they made it so much more dynamic. Like in Persona 5, you're like every time you want to do a move, you're going through a menu. And in Metaphor, almost every action is tied to a button. So I'm not moving through menus when I'm in a fight. I'm just clicking buttons for the most part. Um, is there anything you wanted to add about the combat or the any of those mechanics? Any gameplay
No,
stuff you
I
wanted to
mean,
shout out?
I wanna talk about the enemies themselves in a minute, but I think you've
Yeah.
nailed yeah, you're nailing it.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I wanted to get all that out there because I really do
Yeah.
think Metaphor makes, even though for me personally, and I think this is probably similar for you, like the narrative is always going to matter more to me than the mechanics, but I really think they made some really good strides in the right direction, with Metaphor, and this is part of why I'm excited to see, like, what Persona 6 will look like, because
Mhm.
just mechanically, as someone who finds long turn-based RPGs to occasionally get kind of mind-numbing, especially these types of games are designed where at some point you're gonna have to do some grinding, and by grinding, I mean doing repetitive fights just to level up so that you can go into the boss fight and not get your fucking teeth kicked in. Like, that's
Mhm.
just part of the design of these games. It always has been, and it's not my favorite thing. Like, it's not something that I get a lot of enjoyment out of. I know a lot of people do. It's not for me personally. Like, I don't want super repetitive gameplay just so that I can be strong enough to fight the boss. I just wanna play the game normally and be strong enough to fight the boss.
Yeah.
This game still has grinding, but because of all of those small improvements that they've made to the combat and how quickly you can go get in and out of a fight, it makes it a lot less tedious. Um, and there's just a lot
Yeah.
less guesswork to what you're doing. Like it's just a lot easier to see like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is the effect this is going to have, and it's going to be over quickly. And I really appreciated all those adjustments that they made. Um,
Yeah, like yeah, the quality of life improvements are crazy between Persona and this, and it's like when you're really nailing your strategy, it's like you can blow through a battle in, like, a minute,
mhm, mhm.
and it's very
And then you'll hear
satisfying.
those same canned lines of dialogue
Oh
about
god.
5,000
Oh,
times.
Atlas.
Oh, Atlas. It honestly, like, you
Oh,
just tune
power
it
of
out.
kings.
Yeah, there's so many, uh, better keep your oh shit, what is there's a line Gallica says at the end of almost every fight, like, "Better
Keep
keep
your
your
energy
energy
up.
up." Oh my god, every time. And it's white noise to me at a certain point, but
Yeah.
then I look over and my partner's just, like, grinding his teeth, like, "Why am I hearing this for 2 hours straight?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "I'm so sorry. Let me mute this. Nobody needs to listen to this for that long." Uh
Uh,
but yeah, talk to me about the enemies, because this game, like all of Atlus's games, is, like, designed to the nth degree.
mhm.
They really take the art and design of these games seriously. You are here for the vibes as much as you're here for anything else.
Absolutely.
So, talk to me about the enemies.
Oh my god. So, there are these creatures called humans in the game,
What?
and yeah, what? Um, which is kind of delightful because, it's like this fantasy world where everyone is these different races, and the things called humans are these, like, really bizarre looking amalgamations of, like, body parts and surreal one of the first humans you fight is, like, all these legs coming out of an egg, and there's,
Mhm.
like, tree branches with apples on them, and the head of an owl, and
Uh-huh.
an arm dancing on a sword. It's just, like, the most bizarre shit you've ever seen.
Mhm.
And I took a look at that, and I was like, "Huh, this reminds me of the work of one of my favorite artists, Dutch Renaissance painter Hieronymus Bosch." And
And then
sure
Spencer realized
enough,
this game was tailor-made for them.
literally, this game was made for me. Literally. Um, so last year I went to Spain with some close friends, and there's an art museum called the
Not me, for the
Museo.
record.
All of my close friends except for Jamie. Um, there's a museum, the Museo del Prado, sorry to my Spanish speakers, in Madrid, and it has this triptych by Hieronymus Bosch. It's called The Garden of Earthly Delights. And it's basically these 3 panels of, like, the Garden of Eden, hell, and, um it's not heaven on the other side, but it's kind of like, this the paradise garden, and one is the center is, like, this idealistic version of it, and then on the sides are, like, kind of um, the horror of there's the scenes of kind of, opulence and, um, what's it called? Like, giving into lust and pleasure gives way to these kind of nightmarish scenes. And, Bosch in general as a painter, um, he kind of what did I write down? He he was this really creative, visionary, um, who kind of would bring to life humanity's desires and deepest fears. And so the men and women that Bosch depicts in the Garden of Earthly Delights believe that they are inhabiting a paradise for lovers, but this is false, and their only fate is punishment in hell. The message that the center panel conveys is that of the fragility and ephemeral nature of happiness and delight in these sinful pleasures. And so it's like, as humans, we are prone to giving in to our urges, our desires, and on the other side of that is our own doom. Like, we generally don't we generally aren't great at, like, self-preservation or thinking about the future. Um,
Not us.
and so I think when Jamie was talking about, kind of how the game approaches hope and idealism with a with maturity, with a lack of naivete, I feel like that comes down to the artistic influences too of Bosch's paintings. It's like knowing and playing with the fact that as humans we're kind of like dancing on our own graves in a lot of ways. Like, we're spelling our own destruction, but there's still moments of joy and pleasure to be had. And anyway, literally the Bosch's paintings of the Garden of Earthly Delights. It literally has these freaky scenes of like the exact monster that I described in the beginning of the game. I have a book that has high detail images of Bosch's paintings. I open the book. Literally, it's there. The
Yeah.
legs, the egg, the owl head, the
Mhm.
the the blades. So a lot of these humans that you encounter throughout the games, they're directly pulled from this painting, The Garden of Earthly Delights. And the aesthetic, like even when you look at the sky in the game, you see that it's all like these painterly strokes, almost like brush strokes. The clouds are kind of painted that way in the sky. The landscapes look very much like a Bosch painting. It's like you're living in this surreal, fantastical, world, that was imagined by a person whose goal was to get people to look at humanity and sort of understand our fears and anxieties and desires and manifest them in a way that no other painter was doing at the time. Like even today, like art historians are like, "What drugs was Bosch on, and can I get some?" Because like he was really on his
They
own
are
level.
wild, like, the character designs and yeah, so this was another one of, like, me being an uncultured swine moments where we were talking about the game, and I'm like yeah, I was just like, "Oh, yeah, these character designs are wild." So it's just like, "Well, yeah, they're all they're anonymous Bosch characters." I'm like, but
Who?
who?" I mean, who?" And they're like, "I'm only my favorite painter anonymous Bosch." But yeah, when you do it's wild, I looked up some of the paintings and like, yeah, straight up, there's characters literally straight out of that painting that are in the game. It's just yeah, it's pretty fucking cool. It's cool how much the game takes these things like, the Bosch paintings, Moore's Utopia. It infuses all of that into the game. It's literally this like Ouroboros of
Mhm.
art inspiring reality
Mm.
and then that's, like, part of the purpose of the game, like, part of the game is about somebody who read a book and, like, had ideals from that book that they then try to apply into their real life, and the game is like, the director of the game, Katsura, Hoshino, has, like, literally said in interviews, "I want people to play this game and to feel inspired and hopeful in their own lives to, like, take
Oh,
collective political action," like, I'm
yes.
paraphrasing him, but, like, he's talked about this in interviews that he hopes that people will find inspiration for the game. And this idea that, like I mean, yeah, that is the purpose of art, to inspire us towards action or towards emotions, and that it can be this cyclical thing, like, both how the people who created the game put the art that inspired them into it, the character in the game is inspired by art to like pursue
Mm.
his political ideals and like we as players are supposed to have that same experience with the game as well it's fucking cool.
It's
It's
just
very
amazing.
metaphorical, it's very meta generally. I just really yeah, love it. What else do you
Yeah.
wanna shout out this game for? Is there anything on your short list?
I wanna talk about the Mastari.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, let's talk about the Mistari. They're one of the races.
So
Sorry, we're getting a
okay,
little bit of lag.
yes.
Bear with us,
They
listeners.
they are a oh,
Sorry. Technical difficulties.
hi.
Hi. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Can you not hear me?
Okay, okay. S No, I can. Oh, no. Internet, no.
You're good. Just go.
Oh, no. Okay, okay. So the Mastari are these, people that are for the for large part considered a reference as pagans by the rest of the society in Urchronia because they do not adhere to sanctism, which is the um, what is it called? Like main
State religion.
religion, overarching state religion, majority religion, followed by the rest of the people. And they have customs that um, other people sort of feel are outlandish. Like, for example, they wear these masks that cover their faces. They don't typically do things like handshakes, as like those have very specific meaning. They have their own customs, and they worship this dragon god, and their religion is kind of built on more like there's a moment where one of the characters kind of explains how Mastari religion is more based there's a bit more self-determinism involved, like, it's not just putting all of your faith into this god that will save you, like, it in a lot of ways, their dragon god empowers one to save themselves is kind of a one of the contrasts illustrated. Um, but the Mistari have kind of been pushed out of their ancestral homes and are relegated to this small island, where they are dependent on trade with the mainland of Uchronia, where the Sanctus live.
They've also
Um
had, like, all their religious, like, the church has determined that the, um like, the state religion church has determined that all of their, like, religious artifacts are actually, like, relics that are part of
mhm.
sanctism. So, there's
Yes.
a lot of parallels to English colonialism and Catholicism and like, this whole, like, just taking of people's culture and saying, "Actually, this was ours all along, and so we're gonna
Mhm.
house it over here, and we're gonna write a new narrative for it, like, rewrite the
Mhm.
story of it, and you can't have it anymore or have access to it," is it's really played out to them. Sorry, that's
Yeah.
just a an interesting detail I thought that they included.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because it's incredibly timely. And you have this opportunity. So, there's these royal virtues, which are kind of like your social stats and persona, and it's like these different like like one is courage, one is wisdom, one is tolerance. And so one way you can raise tolerance is by finding there are mastari kind of scattered among the different cities on the mainland that you can encounter, and you can sort of listen to their stories, their oral histories, and kind of learn more about their people and culture and what they've and the oppression that they've faced and the erasure of their customs and religion. Um, so kind of I had screenshotted a quote from one of the Mastari that I had sat and talked to, and they say they're in one of the cities on the main island, and they say, "You must have thought it strange how I chose to remain in this city in spite of all that I've suffered here. I stayed because our history is so indelibly rooted in this land. It calls to me, and I am compelled to reside here in our ancestral home. In fact, it's likely that Mastari who have converted to Sanctism only abandoned their faith so they could remain close to their native roots." And that's just one example of kind of the stories and experiences you hear from these Mastari across the land as you learn about them. Um, I just found it very powerful to include because I think we see a lot of a very similar tale playing out today. And I don't know what the metaphor team was necessarily trying to do with their inclusion of the story of the Mastari, but I think I just appreciated that this game was, going so far as to explore, um, you know, how indigenous people across time have suffered for and been ostracized and even demonized because of their faith and customs being different from a colonial power's own idea, how histories have been overwritten or rewritten to suit a colonist narrative, and how even despite occupation and being forced out of their places of um indigenous identity and home and history, like how indigenous peoples all over the world still find ways to continue on and persist and keep their cultures alive through storytelling and sharing. And I don't know, it was just something that stood out to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think especially in the bonds and stuff that play, there's just the game is so rich with these narrative moments and beats, whether they center on a character and your bond, or whether it's something that happens as part of a side quest or as part of the main narrative. Yeah, there's so much in there
Hmm.
to just leave you thinking.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, is there any other stuff you had on your short list to highlight?
I
I feel
guess
like I talked your ear off.
this might be a spoiler. I guess, I don't know, a small spoiler.
Okay.
Feel free to skip ahead like 2 minutes. I don't know, is
Okay.
that okay to say?
Yeah, I think that's okay to say. I don't know what you're gonna say right
I
now,
just
so we can
I
tag it
think
too.
just my last comment on the Mastari, like, at first, when you visit their home, like, there's a town of Mastari that you can visit, and
Mhm.
at first, on the map and in your conversations, it's called, like, Pagan Island. And I was like, "Okay, like, why are they okay, Atlas, why?" It's just called like, it has no name. It's just
Yeah.
called Pagan Island this, Pagan Island that.
Mm.
And through the story, you get to a point where they speak their name into existence and they name themselves. And they're like, no longer are we going to be characterized as this pagan island by the sanctist rulers. Like, this is who we are, and this is our name, and this is what we want to be called and referred to from now on.
Mhm.
Um, so I just think that that speaking into existence of that name and the ownership of that name, and that name being changed on the map to no longer be the colonists rewriting, but to be their name,
Yeah.
is also great. So
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah. Really great.
So yeah, this game really goes places.
Sure does. Sure does. Uh, how does Metaphor stack up to the other Atlas games you've played for you? I think we've both played the same ones, right? We both played Persona 3. Specifically, what? We played P3P,
Mhm,
Persona 3 Portable. We
mhm.
played Persona 5. We played Persona 5 Royal, and we've played this.
Yeah.
So
This
we're
feels
yeah.
this feels like something else. Like a g um I've sort of compared it to, like, Dante's Inferno. Like, it's not j like, Dante's Inferno isn't just a book. It's like a full examination of what life is, what religion is. It's like this epic,
Mhm.
sweeping, kind of, like, defining piece of literature that has influenced so much that has come after it, and contains ideas that are still, um that still have the power to influence even centuries later after it was written.
Mhm.
Um, like, that's what this game feels like to me. It's like it's like an epic piece of art. Like, I feel like it should be in a museum.
Mhm. It's like
I'm,
a
like, serious right now. Um,
yeah, no, it's like, it's like a manifesto, or it's a thesis statement
yes.
about life. And I don't know how you would um the game ends in such a way that it could have a sequel, but I don't know how you could possibly create a sequel to this. Like, I don't know how you would that would have an even remotely the impact that this could have. Like, you could continue the story of the characters, but I don't know what else you could add to what this game is saying. Like, this game is like a
Mhm.
eh yeah, it's like a yeah, like a piece of literature or the closest you could get to that in a game. Like, I don't know how you could continue that. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you there that it's hard to compare it directly to the Persona games that we've played because this feels like something so far beyond, and it also feels like something that the creators, like, they built up to this over years, like, these are ideals and ideas that they've probably been cultivating for a very long time, and then put it all together into this game and put it out into the world, and yeah, you don't just, like, follow that up. It's not like it's not like,
Mhm.
um, I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever see its equal or its sequel, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so singular. So, like, I uh, sorry, how does it stack up? It's like the it's like the pinnacle of, like, Persona to me. Like,
Mhm.
I don't even know if it's like comparing apples and oranges. I I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair to say. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't have a great answer to this question either. I mean, I think in terms of enjoyment, maybe I enjoyed like, if I was ranking them, like, would I put Persona 5 Royal ahead of this? Maybe, but again, it
Mhm.
just feels like something that you have to almost, like, separate out into its own category. Um, Even if I don't like I said, I haven't done my game of the year list. I'm not really sure where this is gonna land in that regard. I don't know if this will be my game of the year, but in some ways it feels bigger than that, with everything that
Mhm.
it's trying to say. Um, so it's hard to contextualize it in that way or to rank it in that way. Like, yeah, I think if I'm just
Mhm.
talking about my favorite, like, I didn't feel the same as you, or it's like, "Oh my god, this game is, like, made for me." Like, I didn't have the connections to the literature or the art that was already in the game, that was in the game that was speaking directly to me in that sense. So, I didn't have the experience of playing it and being like, "Oh my god, like, this game is tailor-made for me," or like, "This is my new favorite game of all time." I don't feel that way about the game, but I definitely feel like it's bigger than just a game. Like, I don't know, as like a piece of art that's being put
Yeah.
out there. So, if I'm just
It's like
talking
the
about
scope is even
yeah,
wider.
yeah. So I'm just talking about games I love this year. I mean, this is definitely a game that I love this year, but if I'm talking about, like, Atlus games that I love, like, I probably love Persona 5 Royal more than this, but that isn't an indictment of the quality of this game. It's just how I personally felt about, like, the narrative and the characters and the gameplay versus Persona 5 Royals. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do think people should check out Metaphor ReFantazio. I know it's a big ask, it's a big meaty game, but I think if you do have the time, the holidays are here, in the US, maybe you wanna take
Mhm.
some time off and just sink into Metaphor ReFantazio for a couple of weeks. It would definitely be a good use of your time, and there's just so much here to love, enjoy, and appreciate, and respond to and feel inspired by.
Mhm.
Good.
Mhm.
All right. I think time is up for today's session of Pixel Therapy. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope that listening to our thoughts and feelings gave you some thoughts and feelings of your own. If you want more Pixel Therapy, come check us out at patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can sign up for free to stay up to date on everything we have going on, including our weekly streaming schedule. Well, not so weekly right now, but including our streaming schedule. Or subscribe for as little as $2 a month and snag that sweet monthly bonus episode. Also, be sure to check out our Let's Play series, Pixel Therapy Plays, on the Pixel Therapy Pod YouTube channel. And you can subscribe and ring the bell there to get notifications every time we go live. And of course, you can also support the show by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts and following us on Twitter at Pixel Therapy Pod. That stuff is just as important, and we appreciate it just as much.
Finally, since we like to put our money and our energy where our mouth is, we end every episode with a recommended side quest. tinyurl.com/OP Olive Branch. Operation Olive Branch is a grassroots collective effort to amplify Palestinian voices and their GoFundMes. You can visit that link. Again, that's tinyurl.com/OP Olive Branch to learn more, or visit their Instagram page at Operation Olive Branch.
Thank you for that side quest, Spencer. That is our show for today, folks. So go forth, run a story mission, level up some stats. Don't forget to hug and NPC every now and then. We'll be back oh so soon with some more.
Pixel
Therapy.
Therapy.
The lag is fucking us tonight. All right, folks, have a good one.
Is lagging.
Yeah, lagging so bad. Bye.